brings. I'll take one lift, your ride, best trip. Always, I know you'll be at my show, watching, waiting, commiserating. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home. Na 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 na. Late night, come home, work sucks, I know. She left me roses by the stairs. Surprises let me know she cares. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Keep the lights off, carry me home. Keep your head still, I'll be your thrill. Night will go on, my little windmill. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home. Keep your head still, I'll be your thrill. Life will go on, life will go on, you know it will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Catalyst. My name is Ashley, and I'm on the preaching team here. And today we're starting a new series, and so today is all about foundations. And so I thought a good way to start us off would be to talk about kind of the most well-known foundation of a building, which is the Tower of Pisa. For those of you who don't know, the Tower of Pisa is a building that took about 200 years to build, and during that time it started to lean a little bit, and over time it leaned kind of more and more, and now this kind of failed foundation is heralded as easily the best object to pretend to hold up in a photo. But the original plan for construction had nothing to do with that. It started in 1173, and it was going to be famous for something not about taking pictures. It was going to be famous because it was planned to be 8 stories high, which meant that it was going to be the tallest bell tower at the time in 1173. And so that, combined with the fact that there is like a ridiculously high number of arches that are built into this building, and you can kind of see all of them. There's like 200 or 300 or something, which was like mind-blowing at the time. Also, it's built out of marble, which, in case you didn't know, is super heavy. And so everybody at the time, their mind was like blown, like all of these things together, it was like, this is crazy. And so they start building this, and by the time they get to the 3rd story, they kind of realize something's a little off because the ground was too soft, and so in a couple of places, the foundation was sinking in. So by the time they got to the 3rd of 8 stories, it had already started to lean a little bit. So they stopped building so that they could try and figure out kind of what's going on with this wonky foundation. And then a couple of things happened. So there were some wars, and a couple of like engineers came in and tried to figure out what was going on with it, tried to see how they could correct the problem, and then they realized, oh man, this is going to be super expensive to fix because we're already on the 3rd story. And so all in all, it ended up taking like 226 years to finally finish, which actually, in hindsight, was a good thing because it allowed the building to come to some kind of equilibrium, where basically the ground had started to sink originally, but in some places it was able to harden, and so it stopped sinking and just kind of was leaning a little bit. So they were actually able to finish building, and at the end of all of it, it is leaning now about 10 degrees. So if you'll imagine with me for a minute, being this initial guy who started planning it. So at first, right, it's getting like a lot of fame. So it's kind of like the cool thing to do. It's kind of trendy. You're kind of getting famous. And then you're building and you get to the third story and you kind of realize, like, it kind of dawns on you, well, crap. Of course it doesn't make sense to build a super skinny building that is so extremely heavy on ground that is so soft. So soft, in fact, that the ginormous cathedral right next to this bell tower was already itself starting to sink at the time they started building. And so I imagine kind of being this guy, and in the beginning I'm like super confident, like, this is gonna be great, I'm gonna get famous, make a lot of money, it's gonna be wonderful. And then you kind of start building, and in hindsight, you realize you were probably too overconfident, and things didn't exactly go the way that you had planned. And the hard part is, once you get to that point, you've already made the big decision that is the foundation. And once you make that decision, you start building on it, things after that are just kind of small decisions. So materials, maybe we take out a couple of the 300 arches or something like that, but they've already laid the foundation, they've already chosen where they're going to build. And so because of the decision he made about the foundation, everything after that kind of became a little wonky. And so we look at this building and we laugh because it's fun. We can hold it up in a picture and like those kinds of things. But I think we would all agree that this is probably not something that we would label as like good. Like if this were a house that was leaning 10 degrees, we probably wouldn't want to live in it. It's probably not a house that would show up like on House Hunters or something because nobody would buy it. If we had a loved one who needed to live in a house, this would not be the choice. Like it's not something we would probably label as good. And as time has gone on, the foundation for the Leaning Tower of Pisa has only gotten worse. And I'm not an architect, and I don't think any of you are, although if you are, please come talk to me because this is super interesting. But for me, this makes me think about my faith. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, who can relate to this architect who began building, I think, a lot better than we think originally. You see, we're building a life of faith, and we think we're building on a good foundation. But how do we really know? It would really suck to get 3 or 30 years into our life of faith and discover things are a little wonky. We've probably been building on the wrong foundation. Nobody wants a leaning tower of faith. So the question I want to propose today is about the foundations of your faith. As Christians, our faith is one that needs to be built to last. But so often we find ourselves facing difficult situations or doubt, and we find that these foundations tend to fail us. So we're going to examine those foundations today, and we're going to talk about what it means to have a faith that's built to last, and what it means to be built on the foundation of Jesus, which is a lasting foundation. So let's begin this morning by worshiping this God who has sought us out for our benefit.
Good morning, Catalyst. My name is Shakita. I'm the worship director here. As you can hear, I'm a little bit voiceless in some parts today, so I'm going to need you guys to really sing, and the place is full today, so we're really going to need you to sing. Hey, there it is. Come on, John. Hey, there it is. All right, please stand with us as we begin to worship, and if it's your first time or if you're visiting with us, we want you to feel welcome, and I want you to just be open to whatever God has to say to you this morning through the worship and through the word. And just feel free to worship as you please and as the Spirit will lead you and move you. Your love is devoted, like a ring of solid gold, like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. And your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon. Oh, mercy, let's do it again, say your love. Your love is devoted, like a ring of solid gold, like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. And your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon. We're merciful today, and faithful you have been, and faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and that's why I sing. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips. You father the orphan, your kindness makes us whole. In your shoulder our weakness, your strength becomes our own. And you're making me like you, clothing me in white, bringing beauty from ashes. For you will have your bride, free from all her guilt, and rid of all her shame, and known by her true name. And that's why I sing. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips. Say it again, say your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips.
say you will be praised. Yeah, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And you will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And you will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And you will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And that's why I sing. Your praise will ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Praise will ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips.
one more time, say your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will
ever be on my lips,
ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Alone in us singing along.
Lost without hope and no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began. Ash was redeemed, only beauty remained. My orphan heart was given a name. My anger quiet, my feet rose to dance. Death was arrested and my life began.
Sing, oh, your grace.
Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He rescued my heart and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Say, oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Say, tell him it's your endless love, endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. My Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as if heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Say, oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made us new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love, it's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Say we're free, oh we're free, free forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. We're free, free forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free forever, amen. When death was arrested and say we're free, yes, we're free, free forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free forever, amen. When death was arrested and my, that's when death was
you have been good to us and that you've been gracious and merciful toward us. We pray, God, that you would just have our hearts open and that we will be able to receive from you this morning. And we just thank you and praise you for your presence and your goodness. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, you can have a seat. I'm going to go over some announcements. Good morning. My name is Sue. Hi. Hello. So first thing, we have Trunk or Treat coming up. I know in the past we've had that at Chick-fil-A. This year we're joining with the city of Rowlett. So we're just going to have one big, fantastic, spooky trunk. So if you want to help out with that, we have our little tear-off card here. You can indicate a little note about that. Also, and that's October 26th. October 20th is Pastor Appreciation Lunch. So, and the whole month of October is Pastor Appreciation Month. So, we are taking up a love offering for our pastor, JR, and his wife, Amanda. So, if you want to donate to that, you can go ahead and write Pastor Appreciation on the check or the envelope if you put it back in the box there, or you can indicate Pastor Appreciate if you give your money online. Also, we're having a celebration lunch on October 20th after the service, and we need help bringing food. So if you're interested in bringing something to share with everybody, you can go ahead and put your name and your phone number or email address on here, and we'll reach out to you and kind of coordinate that. If you're a guest with us today, thank you for being here. There's a little spot for you to, if you'd like to come to newcomers lunch, we have information about that in here. Or if you need prayer, it's pretty low risk if you're just joining us for the first time. We're not going to harass you or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about that. But now let's go ahead and tear this part off together. So everybody get ready. Get your Beaker Mini out. I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, we're going to tear it off together. You may want to, I like to kind of fold mine back and forth first to get ready. Okay, all right. 1, 2, 3. Good job. Okay, that sound indicates that it's time for our kids to go back to the lab where they can learn about today's lesson at their instructional level. So there, go ahead. There. Oh, okay. Those are mine, the loud ones that are running better. We believe peace comes from God into the earth through us. So we're going to take a few moments just to greet each other before Ashley gets back up here to share her teaching today. So, just check in with each other, do a handshake, a high five, a hug, an elbow bump. Do that as we get into flu season. Sometimes that's a nice way to greet people. Okay, so go ahead and take a moment to greet each other.
So we're kicking off the new series this week, like I said earlier, and it's called A Faith Built to Last, under construction, as you can see. So for the next month, we're basically asking, what are the essential components of a strong faith? How do we build a faith that can weather the storms of life? What is a faith that keeps us secure no matter what? A faith that's open and courageous? How do we get the kind of faith that makes us infectious? The kind of people that you just want to be around. A person who's actively making their world a better place. So we're going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 for the next month, so for the whole series. And the Corinthian church is pretty young, only a couple of years old at this point. And the Apostle Paul, who actually planted the church, is writing a letter to them to address some cracks that he has noticed in their congregation. And Paul uses a building metaphor to advise the Corinthian Christians about what they need to grow stronger. And so today, this whole series really, we're going to carry that building metaphor all the way through. So today we're talking about the most basic and most fundamental part of any building or any structure, which is the foundation. You can't build a house without first laying the foundation, and our faith is really no different than that. So if we're going to be talking about that today, we really need to address what it means to say the foundation of your faith. What is the foundation of your faith? This is something that we talk about in a really broad way most of the time. I think if you've ever been in the church for really like any amount of time, somebody has probably thrown out like, oh yeah, Jesus is your foundation. All right, that's it. You can go home now. And we never really go into like what that means. So what does that really mean? Like, is it to go to heaven? Or is it to like just not go to hell? Like wherever you end up, you're just not in hell? Or is it like John 3:16 that God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that, you know, the whole thing? Like what is it really? We never really talk about it. And it's pretty hard to pin down because we never talk about it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And fortunately for us, Paul talks about it in 1 Corinthians 3. And so when Paul starts writing to this church, they're divided. And the reason they're divided is because they're arguing essentially over who the correct person to follow is. They're asking, is it Paul or is it Apollos? So what happened is Paul went to Corinth and he planted this church. And so he kind of led them for a little while. He helped grow the church and those kinds of things. And then Paul had to leave. He moved on. And then Apollos kind of came in after him and filled that leadership gap. And so now the church is at this place where some people support Paul's teachings and think that he's the one true leader of the church. And some other people support Apollos' teachings. And they're kind of arguing who the real leader is. And this wasn't something that the church took lightly. On both sides, there were people who like knew in their gut, like, this guy is the right guy, or this other guy is the right guy. And so some would, suggest like, well, this guy should be the next leader because he followed in Apollos' footsteps. Or the other side would offer up their own kind of mascot and say, no, it should be this guy because he followed in Paul's footsteps. And you can see pretty quickly how it would devolve from there. You can imagine it, right? There's all of Paul's followers would sit on this side, and all of Apollos' followers would sit on this side, and they weren't allowed to talk to each other. Like the only appropriate interaction was like throwing shade, like giving them the side eye, like, you guys suck. And so these weren't like small cracks. These were like big building shifting cracks, big faith altering cracks. And when Paul hears of this, he starts writing to them, and he's going to tell them, like, listen, guys, this isn't what I taught you while I was there. What I taught you whenever I was with you is that it's always Jesus. It's not us, it's Jesus. It's not you, it's not me, it's not Paul, it's not Apollos, it's Jesus. So to do this, he uses that building metaphor that I've mentioned a couple of times. So let's see what he says in chapter 3, verse 10. It says something. Maybe. Here we go. Because of God's grace to me, I have laid the foundation like an expert builder. Now others are building on it, but whoever is building on this foundation must be very careful, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, Jesus Christ. All right, so now we know Jesus is the foundation. It's not Paul, it's not Apollos, it's not me, it's not you, it's not anybody else, it's Jesus. Well, I'm glad we were able to clear that up. See you guys next week. All right. Okay, but really, like I said, we say that in a really vague way, but let's say we take Paul seriously in this instance. He hears about this church who's severely divided, and his actual response is, y'all need Jesus. So, if we're going to be honest and serious, if we're going to take him seriously, then how is Jesus the foundation? What does that mean? And I think this is the part where things get vague. So let's really get down to the nitty-gritty. If Jesus is the foundation of our faith, then what is faith? And this is actually a pretty easy question to answer because we've kind of been talking about it a lot for most of this year. We've talked about it a lot over the last few months even. Faith is a relationship with God. So if Jesus is the foundation of our faith, and faith is our relationship with God, then Jesus is the foundation of our relationship with God. So this relationship, which is really only possible because Jesus came to us, we're only able to have this true relationship with God because God made the move first. He came to earth and he walked among us in the form of Jesus. And so that's it. That's the foundation. God made the first move towards us. And because of that, we're able to have this relationship with him. And that is what we build our faith on. It's that foundation. And it seems really simplistic because it is. I think oftentimes we try to overcomplicate it, but it's really that simple. And it really is difficult to believe that it's just God came to us first, and therefore we're able to have a relationship with him, and that's it. So oftentimes we try to kind of overcomplicate things, and this is something that Paul came across pretty consistently in his preaching and teaching. And so in any of the letters in the New Testament that Paul writes, we just saw it in 1 Corinthians, we're talking about it in this series, but you can see it in Galatians and Colossians and all of these things. You'll start to see a pattern where, Paul's like, okay, well, God said, I was not content to leave you in your sin, so I came down to you. And then we kind of respond and we're like, well, God needs us to do the right thing. So really you need to follow the Torah because it's the law, and then God, loves us. And then, God kind of says no. I came to you first. And that's what matters. And we're like, yeah, but God really isn't that patient. So we really need to do the right things and believe the right things. And then God's like, okay guys, come on now. God says, I love you enough to rescue you. And we say, well, God can't really love everyone. So he only loves you if you believe the right things. It's really hard to believe that entering into a faith with a strong foundation is as easy as trusting in a relationship that is unfailing. We're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Surely something is going to come along and show us that we were silly to believe that things would have been that easy. There's no way it's going to be that easy. And so we have to have something tangible, something physical to make it easier to believe. So we say, well, the foundation is the law, it's the Torah. And Moses wrote that, and he was definitely holy, so that's probably right. So if we just follow the Torah, then that's what it is. Or we say, the foundation is our actions. So if we just act the right way, then we'll always have a good foundation and things will always be good. But here's the thing. Jesus literally told us don't do this when he was teaching. In Matthew 7, he says this, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against the house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. And so Jesus says we are to be built on him alone. That's the bedrock in that situation. And if we know we don't usually do it that well, we try to overcomplicate it, then what does it mean to be built on Jesus alone? Or how do we talk about that? What does that look like in our lives? And honestly, the most tangible way that I can explain it is to tell you what it's looked like in my life. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up in a very broken home, and it was a home that was bound very tightly by anger and pain, and so much so that it kind of squeezed the life out of every other living thing. And so I came to a point pretty early on where I kind of asked myself, like, if what I was experiencing, this anger and this mistrust and this hatefulness towards everybody and everything, if that was really how life was supposed to be. And if it was, then how in the Sam heck had people done that for thousands of years? Because if you've ever lived that way, it sucks. And so I really was I was asking myself, like, what am I missing? Because obviously I had to be missing something if people had done this for thousands of years, and they're obviously not living this way. And I'm just like sitting in my room, like thinking, throwing stuff out into the universe, hoping some answer will come back to me as to like how do you live? Because this isn't living, And God just kind of hit me. And it sounds funny, but God just kind of spoke to me, and he said, hey, it's me. And that was it. God is what I was missing. And it makes absolutely no sense at all, because I did not know what it meant to be a Christian, or what it meant to follow God, or be a part of a church, or anything. But that showing up in my life is what started this wonderful journey in my world. That experience is what led me to this relationship that we've been talking about, where I saw exactly what I was missing: love. And that relationship is where I was encountered so wholeheartedly by that love that I knew I couldn't go back. I wasn't looking for God, but God was looking for me. I didn't encounter God, but God chose to encounter me. I didn't love God, but God knew every part of me, and he loved me first. Because that boundless love is like no other. It's a love that seeks out those who are alone and sits with them. It's a love that's not content in letting us stay in our anger and pain. It's a love with the kind of scandalous grace that only comes from God that changed everything for me. And it's that relationship, that experience where I was sought out in my own brokenness, that caused the faith that I have today. It's that experience which laid the foundation for my faith. And it's the foundation on which the rest of my faith is built. God will always love us enough to seek us out. And that has carried me through so much growth and change and pain, even through the storms and the winds beating against that house. There's still a part of me, however small at that time, that believes down to the core of my being that God is not content to let us sit in our despair, that God will seek us out. And for some of you, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because your foundation is fresh. You haven't built very much on it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's something that you are constantly encountering. But for others of you, it's been a while since you have remembered that first love of Jesus. It's been a while since your wide-eyed and bushy-tailed Christianity began. And so today I'm asking you, wherever you might be, to examine that foundation, to really look at it. What's it made of? What kind of experiences shaped and molded your faith that became your foundation? What kinds of beliefs shaped and molded that foundation? Listen, we build a lot of crap on top of our foundation, and we'll get to that in the coming weeks. But this week, we're talking about the foundation. So take all of that stuff away. And just really, imagine sweeping everything off a table. And just look at your foundation. What's left after you take all that stuff away? Is it a religious legalism that says, well, God will only love you if you do the right things? Or is it an unconditional love that embraces you on your best and your worst days? Is it an exclusionary faith that says God only loves those on the inside? Or is it a love that leaves a crowd for the one who isn't there? Is it a faith founded on a distant and sometimes hateful God that has left you to just figure it out in the world? Or is it a God who has sought you out and continues to seek you out because of his love for you? Is it a faith in yourself and all of the things that you can do? Or is it a faith that is so deeply outside yourself that you forget about you? Only you can know what your foundation is made of. But one thing we know for certain, if your foundation is anything other than Jesus, then your faith will have cracks. It'll sink and it'll lean to one side, and you'll put a lot of extra work into fixing the cracks when the foundation is what is wrong. If there's anything, even something small and minuscule, that's not Jesus in that foundation, it will cause cracks, and it won't stand the test of time. One of my favorite parables is in Luke 15. In it, there's a shepherd who has 100 sheep, and he notices that one of the sheep out of the 100 is missing. And the shepherd makes the decision that that one sheep was worth seeking out. And it's that love that helps us build our relationship with God. It's that God that seeks us out first. It's the God that leaves the 99 for the one that's alone. And I think we all know what it's like to be that one that is alone. It's that love that is our foundation. So let's, just for today, sweep away all of the random and out of this world things that are built on our foundation of our faith. And just for a minute with me today, imagine what it would look like for you to take all of that away and just be sought and loved by God. What would it look like to rest in the love that is so deep that there's nothing else to do than just be in it? It's that kind of love that creates the foundation for your faith that will be built to last. So rest in that love with me today. And there's no better reminder of Jesus' love for us than the communion table. It's the table that Jesus invites us to, just as we are, to eat with him and his disciples the meal they shared the night before he was killed. At that meal, he broke bread and he gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, broken for you. Take and eat it." And after the meal was finished, he gave them a cup of wine, saying, "This is my blood, poured out for you and for the forgiveness of sins. Drink it all." You don't have to be a member of Catalyst this morning to receive communion with us. If you're willing to build your faith on the simple truth of God's love, then you're welcome to join us today. Before we come, I'm going to lead us in a prayer of examine, where I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, and I'm going to give you time to reflect prayerfully on them, and then I'll pray, and we can come to the table. So the first question is, as I think of my faith, what is the foundation? And the second question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very hard and 10 being very easy, how easily do I receive God's love for me? And the last question, when can I make time this week to receive God's love? Let's pray. God, you have gathered us here today to call us back to a simple truth, that we love because you first loved us. We confess that we find that simple truth is scandalous. We struggle to believe your love could truly be free of charge, that you love us wholly and completely right where we are. So you invite us to the communion table today. You call us your friends, and you invite us to receive your very self as a gift. And as we receive these wafers and juice, we pray that they might become a spiritual food, that we may be reminded yet again of your infinite, unconditional love for us. May we be ever transformed by that love to be your people. We offer these prayers and approach your table today in the name of your Son, Jesus.
Please stand as we end in worship. This is a song that we have never done here, but if you know it, please go ahead and sing along. Walking around these halls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Sing, your promise still stands. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence.
Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Said you never failed me yet. You put your hands together. I've seen you move, come move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I see you move. You move the mountain, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I see you do it again, yeah. I see you do it again, yeah. I see you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Singing your promise. Your promise still stands. Your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never found me yet. And I'll never forget. You never failed me yet, Lord, and I'll never forget.
Thank you, everybody who supports Catalyst through your giving and serving. Thank you guys for making our ministry possible. Now, if you're a guest with us, thank you again for worshiping with us. And if you're looking to get connected to a new congregation, you can sign up on the Next Step card for the newcomers lunch. The next one is October 13th, and it's right after this, and basically in 45 minutes we tell you who Catalyst is and how you can get connected, and we feed you as well. So if you want to sign up, you can just check the top box on the Next Step card and drop it off in the box by the door on your way out. Now, as you're going, I want to challenge you to meditate on Luke 15 this week. And we've talked about spiritual practices a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but we've got guides out in the lobby if you guys want a guide. Meditating on Scripture is essentially sitting with the passage and allowing God to be present with you. Luke 15 is 3 stories about God's love for us. So take at least 5 minutes a day this week to just sit and allow yourself to be loved by God. God is the one who seeks us out, even when we've wandered, even when we've willingly walked away. So immerse yourself in that love this week as we prepare to talk about the rest of the bones of our faith throughout this series in the coming weeks. Let's be a people who build our faith on the good news that God seeks us out. Let us put away our striving and earning and trying and scraping by to be loved so that we can receive God's infinite, endless love for us. Now, as you go, know that the one who created you and loves you goes ahead of you, preparing good work for you to do. The one who calls you goes beside you to empower you to do that good work. And the one who is faithful comes behind you to keep you always. Go in the grace and the peace of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week.